and hypothetical. Nothing's ever true in these things. But oh, we are live.
Ew.
This is Stone Guy 223. I appreciate all 20 of you watching. It's kind of started late, so there'll be people filtering in here, I'm sure. I hope. Pretty interesting topic tonight. But first, we're going to introduce Mr. Ralph DeCat.
AKA Clock Guru. Hello, welcome. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And then we've got Gun Websites, who has AFK for the moment. Nope, there he is.
I'm back.
So Gun Websites. First off, I want to know what this badass Glock you got was.
Let's wait for the pictures.
Oh, you're gonna make us
I
wait.
can guarantee nobody else owns one. I only know of one other person on YouTube that owns one.
It's not a Glock 18, is it?
No, there's lots of people that have those. Well,
Yeah.
but no, it's not that. However, since we're talking about full auto, it could be that potentially, right?
Well, that's why. Yeah, that's why. Yeah. All right, so I guess we have to wait until tomorrow to find out what.
Tomorrow, I hope it'll be here tomorrow. It'll be longer than that. I think it's got to come in the mail.
Oh, I thought you said tomorrow. Okay, cool. Well, either way.
I just got to tell you, I've got some really bad gas tonight.
Well, it's a good thing I'm about 1,000 miles away from you.
Still smell it.
Actually, it's just a 2-liter bottle, depressurizing. I have all my 2-liter sodas flown in from different altitudes, so I have to depressurize when they get here.
Nice.
So here's the deal. I'm sorry, hang on. What the fuck?
Lay it on us, Stone.
Yeah.
So you said you talked to your lawyer friend about a lot of stuff, or?
Yeah, so sorry, I was reading something that got me all discombobulated for a minute. So I'm had a match this past weekend and talked to one of my buddies who's a attorney, and he actually sets up trust for pretty much for his main staple in his practice is trust. I mean, he does other, I think, personal injury or some other lawyer shit, but his main thing is Second Amendment trust. He's kind of that kind of lawyer. I told him I'd give him a shout out if anybody's interested. It's GeorgiaNFATrust.com. His name is Roy, R-O-Y, Roy Baker. And he's been doing that since I think 1999, maybe, setting up trust and different things like that. So he's pretty well up to speed on the the new laws and the ins and outs. So I was asking him about this this thing that came down and from Obama saying that. Well, and gee, well, you explained it better the other day because from my understanding,
I don't know all the details, but the Jim Fuller from Rifle Dynamics had posted on Facebook something about the concept that with the last time Obama screwed with the trust and who can be in a trust for an NFA item, basically saying that the people who are in the trust need to get background checks. Somehow that opened up a potential backdoor that the Hughes Amendment defines who can own a full auto or who can create a full auto after 86 or 89, and somehow there's a potential that trust could buy one instead of an individual, or instead of an individual being prohibited, a trust might be able to create a new machine gun. And how awesome would it be if we could start manufacturing and buying full auto again?
Right, and that's kind of my understanding. Basically, the way he explained it to me was that a trust, as defined in the 86, was that the Hughes Amendment in 86?
It was the Gun Owners Protection Act, and the Hughes Amendment was voted on right at the end.
Okay, so the way he described it to me was that a trust is not listed as an individual, or a trust is not an individual. So
It's an entity like a business.
right, it's kind of like it's not a I said corporation. He said, no, that's two
No.
different things. So he said,
Right.
basically, when you're in a trust, you're not an individual, you're a trust. And
I
so,
have a trust. You're a member of that
right,
trust, and you can make other members of that trust. And what it really does is it clearly delineates property and what happens to that property upon death of the trustees, of the trust, and what should happen to that. So people put together a trust for um, the greater majority, 95% or more, is for other items, other than. Um, so you hear trust fund babies, right? And that's what that is. So I contribute to a trust for my daughter. She's not available to start drawing out of until she's 18. And then, as long as these conditions are met, so me as the individual, I can say she can only be paid out, if these conditions are met, as an example. So if something happens to me, I can control how my wealth is dispersed, after I'm gone, and I don't leave it up to probate court, right? So whenever you establish a trust for NFA purposes, that's you're doing that in anticipation of populating that trust with NFA items and
right.
determining what happens to those items, and then you can add people to that trust and subtract people to that trust, normally relatively easily, and I think it's normally based on state laws.
Right, and
How
that's
that's done.
the big benefit of having a trust is so you could list other people that would be available or allowed to use and possess. Um,
The
like
property listed in the trust.
exactly like a suppressor or a full auto or any property. That's a better way to say it. Just any property listed in the trust.
No
Um,
difference is with a corporation too. Is that's for the reason of doing business, right? Where a trust doesn't have to have a business or anything associated with it. It's just a legal entity, right?
right, and so by definition of the way the verbiage is written in that amendment or in the law, the 86 law, whatever it is, by saying that a trust is not an individual. Well, the law states that an individual cannot own or manufacture full auto. So there's where the discrepancy comes in, is they're saying, okay, well, you can't have it both ways, because if a trust is not an individual, then the trust should be allowed to do such as um, new production of full auto weapon. So that's where I guess a new precedent could be set here. And he told me that he's got 3 or 4 guys that have already filled, and I think it's a Form 1, have already filled out the paperwork for a Form 1 um, to see what's going to happen. So no one's done it, at least that I know of, or that he knew of in his area, and his, who he is exposed to in the law, the law atmosphere. But he's got 3 people going through him that have already filled out the paperwork to see if it gets approved. So it's kind of going to be kind of a
Is
wait
it
and game.
even? It's not even like legally dangerous to do this or risky, right? Because the worst that'll happen is they'll say, "No, we don't approve this." It's not like it's
Exactly.
Well, right,
crime
as
to
long as you
try
don't
this,
build
right?
anything.
Yeah, as long as you don't build it, they're basically applying for permission to do it.
Right.
And so
Well,
he
they're
said,
applying for a Form 1, in other words, so that you can a license to build an item, and once they approve it, you have the license to build that item.
right.
Well,
So
license is a poor choice of words. You're applying for the tax to build that item, and once you've paid the tax, then you have a tax stamp which says you're allowed to place this tax stamp on the item that you buy or that you create.
yeah. So
It's
that's
not like
that's it. That's what we're waiting for now, is to see what their decision's going to be on this. So that'll be kind of interesting to see what happens. I think it'd be kind of poetic justice in a way to think that Obama was trying to hinder our gun rights or put more restrictions on us and inadvertently opened a back door that would allow us to start possessing and manufacturing full auto weapons, new production full autos. And I think it would take the the variable of being cost, as we can own full auto now, but it's just cost prohibitive if you think about it. I mean, with the amount they charge for, I guess, would you call it surplus or?
No, so I think the best thing to say is that if we're talking about the available full autos right now, we're able to buy them, sure, but since there's a list of registered machine guns that exists, and that list is declining because they fall apart, they get dropped in the water, they break, they get destroyed. So the list is slowly dwindling, and that's the only ones that are available. So the law has pigeonholed us to only be able to buy the ones that are already on that list. So you can say we can own full auto, but not really. We can only own the full autos that exist on that list, and that's the crazy part. Because what you're saying is, we'll be able to just make new full autos, which cost maybe $10 or $15 difference than a semi-auto.
Right, exactly, and think of all the full auto parts there's got to be a ton of surplus full auto parts that can't be utilized. So they're just laying around somewhere that. I don't know. I just seem like this would be fantastic if it really goes through. I mean, he seemed kind of a 50-50 really on how it could go based on his information and based on his experience in dealing with those kind of things.
No way. What do you think the percentage is? I'd like to hear around that this ever goes through. There's not a chance in hell.
Well, that's what he's saying. He's saying it's got a chance.
I met a guy in Oregon, and they had the trust, and they also had a manufacturer's license, and he was manufacturing auto weapons. And he said that it was legal. I didn't get a chance to do the background research on it, but according to him, they'd gone through all the process or whatever, and they weren't mass producing them, but they were definitely.
The trust is separate, and there's no way that he could transfer a full auto gun to the trust. Currently,
correct.
There's no way. So the fact that he has a trust and that he has let's just say, a manufacturing FFL are completely irrelevant to one another because they can't interact with one another.
I can only say what he told me. I was a little
skeptical
about it.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I'm certainly not, second guessing.
No, we're saying that can happen. That circumstance can happen all day and night. It's just that, like Rob's saying, just because the same individual might be have a FFL that allows them to build full autos as samples, doesn't mean that the same individual who has a trust is able to take that firearm that he built as a sample for his business and transfer it to his trust, which is a different entity than his business and not licensed like a 07 SOT.
And it may be that he didn't mention that they're making samples and they were untransferable or anything like that, but it did allow them access to them, which was what his end goal was. Right?
Sure, and that's outside of the trust. That's irrelevant of the trust. So
right, you would have people that are like in the business with the SOT, or employees that are able to act as stewards or whatever it's called,
right,
of the property.
Because in most situations, the FFL is issued to the business, and the business is a separate entity from an individual. Then you have responsible parties that are on the FFL. So in reality, the FFL isn't issued to me. It's issued to the business in which I'm a controlling member of. Therefore, I have to be on the FFL as a responsible party. Anyone that has a controlling interest in the business has to be on the FFL as a responsible party. But in reality, it's not issued to me, the individual. It's issued to the business, a separate entity. So
Now, what about the? Well, go ahead.
I'm just saying, if you wanted to have at your disposal, you could do that without a trust. You could go through the process and become an '07 manufacturer SOT. But you couldn't transfer those to your collection. No one in your family could get them after you die. Unless they became members of the business. The business owns them. They couldn't be transferred to you like property. Right.
Right, they were part of the entity, and the entity would continue on without you.
Now, what they're saying now is that because a trust is not an individual, the law says only an individual can't own post, 86 or whatever?
Right.
Right?
Okay, so that's how that's the angle, is that the law says that an individual, that what only an individual cannot possess, instead of saying that only military and law enforcement can possess.
Right. They're saying that only an individual is restricted from owning that property, and since a trust is not an individual, there should be no restriction for a trust to possess and allow people to manufacture and use.
I'm gonna go with just my gut or whatever, maybe my wish or whatever. But if the ATF, or I'm assuming the ATF has to rule on this, then since they should be doing it as like a impartial robot, as opposed to with any kind of intent on their side, they should be doing this completely blank. Then I would say that should be the letter of the law, and that someone should have to either change the Hughes Amendment or the NFA or whatever.
Well, and the thing about it is, if they're going to follow the letter of the law, they better, because they followed the letter of the law in accordance to that 5.4
Yeah, for every other garbage that they give us. Yeah.
Exactly. With the 5.4 ammo. What's the correct designation? I feel like I'm missing something.
5.45 by 39.
Yeah, the 5.4. Wouldn't they call it 5.4N?
7N6 is specifically
7N6. That's the word. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. The 7N6 ammo. When they followed the letter of the law to that, and now they're restricting that. So it should work both ways. If they follow the letter of the law, then
even though it's probably used more often in a long rifle than it is in a pistol, but yeah.
What's that?
Wasn't the distinction that was because it could be used in a pistol?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because someone applied for a pistol license or something, and so once they found out that a steel core ammo or armor piercing round could be shot through a pistol, that made it illegal.
It's not armor piercing.
Well, according to them it is, even though it's not.
How did it magically become armor piercing?
Because it had a steel core or something in it, right?
The definition doesn't that it can pierce steel. The definition is that it has steel in it.
Right. Okay.
But it doesn't say anything about armor piercing. It just says cannot have steel and.
It's easier to say armor piercing than whatever the law says, but the law just says something about the combination of metals in the projectile. Again, no, this is totally off topic already, but now we're talking about something else. We're talking about the definition of armor piercing, which is separate than the part that says armor piercing ammo that's chambered for a pistol. Those are two different laws that triggered the issue that we're talking about, but again, the thing that's in common with what we're talking about is these laws are all written by people that don't know anything about firearms, don't think about anything except for whatever emotional issues going on in the media at the time that they're being driven by, and they don't think about the actual situation and the machines that they're governing.
All right. So G-Web's just put something in the internal here about what about them losing the registry, and I think you mean the whole kind of the catalyst to this whole thing was that Obama wanted individuals in a trust to be required for their little the ID, like the little passport ID and an actual where you get basically like an individual would be purchasing a firearm without a trust. Basically,
you mean the 4473 in the background check?
Right, and the having to get it signed off by the sheriff and all that. Because with a trust, you don't have to do any of that, and so he's trying to make it to where you have to, even with a trust.
Just to be clear, you still do a 4473 with a trust, but you don't do local law enforcement's background check. You're right.
Yeah, and there's some other card. He said something about some other card that
the fingerprint cards.
The fingerprint card.
You would have to do those as a trust.
Right, you don't. So it's the fingerprint card, and then the little passport ID, and then getting signed off by the sheriff. The trust circumvents, or there's no need for that with a trust, and so they're, the government or the ATF or whoever is trying to say that no, we want all that to apply even with a trust, and so they started really, I guess, picking apart the definition of a trust, and since a trust wasn't an individual, they're saying that that shouldn't be required either.
This is all I'm saying that wrong. What does it really matter when an NFA item hasn't been used in a crime in like 26 years? I think that was the number I heard last.
NFA item? I don't know if one has only ever been used since 1934, right? So we're 80 years into it.
You count that one by a cop?
I don't know, but usually you only hear about the one, so that could be it. But still, we're only talking in the last 80 years that NFAs existed. Criminals just don't use these firearms. They're pointless.
Right. North Hollywood shootout, those were illegally converted guns, if I remember right.
Yeah, they weren't NFA registered.
Which is what I think will stop this from happening. Do you think the ATF's going to have on their... Oh, everyone's getting illegal machine guns now. Because a loophole from the ATF. You think
everyone's getting illegal machine guns? What?
The way that the media will spin... Let's say that the ATF says... number one, I'd like to hear a percentage of how many people think that this will actually happen. And then two, how long it would last, because I think they get crucified in the media. Legal machine guns, even though they're already legal now. You know what I'm saying? I think ATF
they would try to, but I don't know how much they'd be able to actually be pinned down by it, because there's not a leg to stand on. There's the immediate BS emotional outcry for the children, but as soon as you put any amount of scrutiny to it at all, like Luke said, there's never any crime committed with them. And it's, there's nothing else to grab onto that's actually fact, right?
And you already have people.
I could see if we passed a new law that made machine guns totally legal for everybody, there's that outcry. But we haven't changed the law. We're operating with their own laws within
that's the way it's going to be painted. That anyone can go and set up a trust. And bypass background checks. Look at the gun show loophole. Look at the way that's portrayed. We know that's
absolutely.
I hear you, but look at how we still have gun shows. Now, sure, the gun community will eventually destroy their gun shows from the inside, but they're not destroying them from the outside. I know, but they're not destroying them from the outside with that gun show loophole garbage, because it's not real. And if anyone does take any close look at it, they know it.
Take the 80%er as an example, right? The 80%er is pretty close to this, no man's land. They're creating guns without getting approval from the nanny state. And largely everybody does it, and nothing's really happening, aside from California, because people actually went and shot up LAX with one, and the billboards that people were advertising CNC machines.
I think what we really need to get out there is that it's not illegal to manufacture your own gun from scratch. It's just with an 80%er, you're getting one that's partly along the way. And if that's the message, it's not being given to the general public, because the general public doesn't realize that you can't.
Well, let's put a caveat on that. You can manufacture your own firearm as long as it's legal for you to own it, or legal to possess from.
Yeah, I wasn't going to get into the nitty-gritty of it, but
yeah, well, just in case.
Law-abiding citizens can make that firearm for their own use.
You say you're coming in a little muffled, Marine. Like you're kind of sound like you're in a.
I'll bring my boom mic down a little bit.
Like you're in a muff.
This one's so sensitive. If I get it right in front of my mouth, then you hear me mouth breathing. So, just trying to find that sweet spot.
That's better? A little better. Yeah, that's a little better. Well, I mean, obviously, I think, 90% of what we talk about on these is speculation and conjecture and what ifs, and I think that's just
How do we?
makes for good conversation anyway. But realistically, it is. I mean, yeah, he would probably be crucified. I mean, can you imagine the political backlash that he'd receive if it turned out that what he enacted opened a door for new manufacture of auto weapons? I mean,
will not happen. It just won't happen. I don't think it'll happen. They were talking about the ATF who can change their opinions on a ruling with little to no oversight, virtually overnight.
Yeah, no notice
this is gonna
whatsoever.
slip by. The new manufacturer of fully automatics is going to slip by them.
No,
What do you-
hold on. This isn't like it has to slip by. It's being brought to their attention and fought for by the people that the laws, the citizens, the people that the laws apply to. It's not like,
If we
we're not
get them to
we're not
do
pulling
enough
the wool
of
over anybody's eyes.
Right, they're going to
if we can
say,
get them to do enough
okay,
of this,
we need to put an amendment there that says no individuals or trusts. Okay, done.
they don't get to rewrite the rules, and if we can get
Yeah, they do.
it proved that they're manipulating the rules to their whim, then we have an articulable case to take against the government for.
That's one of the worst arguments. You can't even get people behind you to support guns, let alone full autos.
No,
You know
I
what
hear
I mean? Who's going to be like, yeah, we support these people's rights to full autos as being
You
restricted?
don't have to have the general public support to bring
There
a
you go.
lawsuit with an organization.
To win
Not
it.
with an organization.
Well, you don't have
have
to bring a
to have
lawsuit. You just have to have money.
If it's a court of law. In a court of law, it's no longer, well, with a few exceptions, it's about facts of law. It's not about people's opinion or the court of public opinion. At that
Well, you'd
point.
have to get the 11th Circuit to hear the case, and that's going to be the hard part.
Wait, why?
Well, if they thought it was a potato.
Because that's
This is
the
still
only
just
that's the
written
only
law. This isn't like a judge thing. How can they?
That's not how the 11th Circuit works. You have to
How
have.
can you, there has to be somebody has to be sued or something, or somebody
Right,
has to.
That's what I'm saying.
right.
There has to be a verdict. Wait. There has to be a verdict
A
on the
verdict.
table that goes
Exactly.
to an appeals court, and then after that fails, then it has to go to whatever particular appeals court. The 11th is just one, right? You have to live in that state for that to work.
Well, that's
Well,
the one
I
that
can
covers
guarantee
most
when
of
they
the
wrote-
agencies because it covers Washington D.C.
When they wrote the 34 NFA, I doubt that they thought, okay, a whole bunch of people out here in the 1930s are going to be setting up trusts and buying machine guns that way. I suspect that the trust issue came up at some point after the fact when someone said, how come an entity called a trust can't buy a firearm on its, on its own?
Yeah. Well, part of you
Is that
got to backtrack on this whole deal was even with the NFA stuff. At the time that the $200 tax stamp came about, that was equivalent to more than buying a vehicle or in some cases a house for somebody to be able to pay for that item, and the penalty hasn't changed, so now it's not as relevant. But they haven't, because it was in the law, they can't change it. They can't just arbitrarily go, oh, we're going to fix for cost of inflation, and this is your new tax stamp price. Have a nice day.
So I'm saying if the trusts weren't written into the NFA originally, which I don't think they suspect they weren't, then again, it's not like someone had to go to court or anything. The Supreme Court had nothing to do with it. Somebody just approached the enforcement branch of government and said, make a ruling on this. And then they made a ruling that the trusts can work, and then they added the stuff probably, I'm assuming. So if that's the way that they added it, or even if that wasn't the case, but basically when there's a law that you're questioning, you don't have the court, the judicial branch doesn't have anything to say about that. That's just some sort of like 30-day notice or some sort of a call to the branch of government that we're talking about, and you get enough people together and you force them to question the law, no, or the interpretation of it, no.
Yeah. But the agency can't arbitrarily, because if there's not enough description in it, rule on it on their own. It has to go into the
I guess they
process
could.
of
They could
changed.
put in the paperwork, get denied, and then sue them for not,
Right.
or take them to court for not being able to, or for or misinterpreting it. I suppose maybe that's the way they would get to the courts.
That's what I was
That sounds
sort of
reasonable to me.
suggesting earlier.
So why are you so pessimistic, though? You're saying that it can't happen. And, well, you were calling before for a left to right on who agrees it can happen, or who thinks if it, or what people think if it's going to happen or
Right.
not happen.
Well,
Okay,
think-
let's do that. So it's not just me and Ralph.
Yeah, I think.
I obviously think it'd be great if it could happen, and I'd love to see it happen. And I think
I'm
it
not
could
sa-
happen too.
Okay, well, I'm not saying I agree it would be great, all that stuff. I'm just saying the actual reality, what percentage would you give it that it actually takes place?
I'm gonna say 30%.
30. I was about to say 30%.
Okay, so less than 50.
I'm more of an optimist, so I'm going to go with 40%.
Still less than a coin flip.
So Moon Food in the chat said, "Why don't we crawl out of our muffs and set up trusts?" Why don't we? This isn't that difficult, right? To
There
to
are
work
those amongst us that already have trusts. I personally don't have one, but
How awesome would it be if every gun owner created a trust and sent that paperwork in, totally jam the whole ATF up until their whole job is dealing with paperwork? They're the
Yeah.
ones that wanted it, so give it to them.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think, well, like take this SIG brace. I mean, how many people do you think they're going to reinterpret or reanalyze the ruling on this SIG brace? Because
re-educate.
there's
They
a
already
lot of
issued-
people
they
that are.
they already issued their opinion, and now they're going to be hard pressed to walk back on it because they came out and flat out said it falls within our rules. It's good to go. So now they'd have to backtrack to make it anything other than that.
Well, they've never done that
Par for the
before.
course. Yeah. Yeah,
They've done it a few times, but only a few times.
But the point is you got to exercise your rights, right? They got to take them away from you. You got to have something that's violated from you so that you have something to claim was taken from you, right? So not to say they gave us something, but there's a window there for some kind of movement in some direction to do some sort of action. And unless we're capitalizing on it, we're just pontificating, if you will.
Ooh, good word. Pontificate.
That's my hotel speak. That's where I get paid
So-
the big bucks.
Whatever you
So
want
this
to
lawyer
ride,
friend of
whatever.
yours, Stone Guy, did you talk about costs or any of that, setting up a trust with him by any chance?
Yeah, I want to say he charges 200 or 250 maybe. Let me give
That's
you
very reasonable for a lawyer. I've
Yeah,
heard of them way over 500 before.
Georgia. It's GeorgiaNFATrust.com. So go check out his website, and I did ask him if he could do trust for people in other states, and he said, yeah, it's not a problem. He would just need to, obviously find out what state you're in, so you could, look up any like laws or restrictions or whatever. But yeah, he does out of state trust, but so GeorgiaNFATrust.com, and it's a pretty good website.
Be careful who you get yourself into a trust with, because there are pitfalls to being in a trust with people that later on don't
Can you
work
be in a trust by yourself?
Oh yeah, definitely. That's how you start it. You don't have to be a part of a group. You
He's
can.
just a lawyer. That's
Yeah,
just a lawyer, right?
He just facilitates
Does
the
the
paperwork and all that sort of stuff, and make sure all the I's are
I think
dotted.
Luke's
and
saying,
T's are crossed.
I think Luke's saying, if you got a bunch of your friends together and you don't really pay a lot of attention, you just put 6 people onto it so you can all use the machine gun.
Yes,
Yeah, I
he is
totally
correct.
get that.
He is definitely correct.
So with these
On
trusts,
the other
then,
hand,
are you subject to? I know we talked about ATF and possible inspections and those sorts of things. Aren't trusts subject to some of that too?
That I don't know about.
wait, what did you say? Sorry, I was looking at the chat.
I have to look it up, I guess.
What did you
Well,
ask?
are you signing anything there that gives the ATF any leeway as far as coming and checking out your place or anything like
Definitely,
that?
the answer is no, not at all.
Okay.
No, because a trust is a legal convention to create an entity that is not a person. It has nothing to do. As far as the ATF is, it might as well be a person as they deal with them. It's not tied
So the
to
trust is a thing, right? That's just a thing, and then you file paperwork for the trust.
Right.
So it's just the same as if a person did paperwork. There's no difference in the Form 4 if you're going to transfer a firearm, and there's no difference in the Form 1 if you're going to create a firearm. When you do it as an individual or a trust, as far as I know, except for the way you fill it out. It's just the, so in other words, there's no requirement that you show them with your, like a blueprint of your place and what your business hours are that you're thinking about for FFLs.
Or if you have a curio and relic, something like that.
CNRs you have to tell them a map of your house and where you're storing them and all that, and they have access.
Well,
to
you got to tell them. You got to tell them what you have. You got to keep a record log, and at any time they can audit that record log and want to see the guns that you've purchased. That doesn't mean you give them carte blanche to your safe. That means you lay out the guns that were purchased under CNR, and they can review them
Once
at
a
any time.
year, and they can do it any time with a warrant. But otherwise, annual
Still a good
inspection
deal.
once a calendar year.
Still a good deal, though.
Now, before you were saying that it couldn't happen because of Obama, but like they would never let it happen. But why couldn't they let it happen? And then that way the Democrats get to say in 14, hey, we're not assholes about guns. We even let full auto come through because that was the letter of the law and all this.
There's no
They
way.
can champion it. You're saying
But
the Democrats won't
make 'em-
champion full auto?
No one will. Nobody will.
All right.
Make them work for it, though, right? I mean, you might as well push the envelope and make them tell you no.
If we're pushing for it, then they're fighting against us doing a proactive thing.
Well, now,
It's as easy as they banned 7 and 6. Crazy.
now
for them to
what's
say.
the now kind of along these same lines? Obviously, we think that the government won't let it happen, but let's say for some miracle it goes through. Everybody's you're allowed to manufacture, own. Well, let's just hypothetical if that amendment just went away, and I mean realistically, other than the fact that it's a huge step in the right direction for our gun rights in general, really is it who wants a full auto?
I think you go
Honestly.
into the drop-in sear business right then and there.
I do if it's
I
not such a
definitely
big
want
headache.
full auto.
Yeah, no kidding. I
As
would
much as
love
I
that.
don't, as much as I wouldn't, I'd be shooting in the semi-auto mode most of the time to conserve ammo. I would love to have the ability to use full auto should the need present itself.
That's the thing. I don't know.
So
I mean,
something like whatever. Let's just say 1900 to make it a round number when they started inventing full autos, and then through 1934, everybody could own full autos. Everything was just fine. Then in 1934, they started to regulate them, and everybody could own full autos, and everything was just fine. And all the way up until 1986, until somebody decided, oh, now I think it's a bad idea for people to own full autos after 86 years of no problems at all. So.
yeah, and I'm just speaking.
What's
more
going to happen if they let it go? Nothing. Everybody, the same people that want full autos will get full autos, except now they don't have to pay $5,000 for them.
But
More.
practically, I mean, practically
And
speaking,
The argument that organized crime would have full autos if it became quote unquote lawful is a lost argument because they already have the ability to convert some weapons to full auto without going within the law.
No,
and
you're
they're
not going to
Well,
stop a criminal
you're
from
talking
being
about-
a criminal.
No, you're talking about reality versus perception. And perception is reality for most people. And you have to think about how the media can spin this. We're talking about what is reality.
The media doesn't win. That's what I'm saying. They spin gun shows, and there's gun shows. They spin everything, and it still exists. They
not
spin
winning the
background checks. We don't have background checks. They spin waiting period. We don't have waiting periods.
Some areas, though. Some areas
Assault
it
weapons
doesn't
ban,
work.
we don't have it. We've only barely gotten ninks in the armor a couple of times. There have been big ones, but no, I'm just saying we don't have to be pessimistic about it and say let's not even try because they're going to win. Because heck no, we have to push it, and sometimes they don't get to. Who cares if they don't like it? They have to do their job, and if we can figure out if we got lawyers that can
All right,
make them do their
so-
job, and they do their
But
job.
not to be a nut and fancy, but new media is starting to eclipse organized media, and that's in our favor because you won't have that organized bent against what our end goal is.
So
We
then,
can send a different message without it getting polluted by organized media.
so to support this and push it forward, what do you propose, G-Webs?
Watching these guys that are already putting in Form 1s.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do the
See what
forms.
happens.
Fill it out.
And
Make it
then-
happen.
And then as soon as that first one goes through, just like with the wrist
Sig
brace,
yeah.
as soon as that SIG brace letter came out and everybody could verify it, sales went up. So if they want us to obey the law by putting in a Form 1 every time we want to make a new firearm and paying them $200, then I suggest we all get a new credit card and some pens with good ink and start writing up forms and, let's see how much they can handle before they decide it's stupid to register firearms for no reason. I'm sure they're going to want to keep taking their $200, which we should fight also, but
let's ask the
do?
deeper question.
Make full autos.
Mm-hmm.
G-Webs brought it up to the point of saying that we've had full autos. The people have had full autos up into the 80s. So the question isn't that were they banned and that's why we don't have them. Do we believe society itself has moved on from the desire to own them? No. The answer is no. There are individuals who still want them and can do so and own them responsibly. So therefore, ipso facto in this country, if they have not committed a crime with it and our Second Amendment allows us to, which it should, we should fully exercise it and push the envelope.
And
I mean,
I'm
to be
going to
quite-
suggest it's probably the same percentage of the population that still wants full auto. I don't think more or less people
Right.
want them. Probably the same.
Exactly.
2% of the people give a damn about it and want them.
Exactly.
Probably the biggest reason that I don't have a full auto is my state preemption against full auto. Because if I lived in Oregon, even though it would cost me, the last time I went looking in Oregon, the base model full auto was running about $5,000 in the tax stamp or whatever. As much as I don't want to pay that much, it's attainable. But I can't do it in my state lawfully.
You know what?
That's
I got to
my
point
bigger
something out. I got to point something out before we go any further. Because the chat's talking about it. Everybody's saying to play devil's advocate, somebody gets a full auto and they do Sandy Hook 2, right? We need to keep in mind here that a lot of the people who are anti-gun believe that Sandy Hook was committed with an automatic weapon. They also believe
But they've been
that
selling that narrative
already
in the media forever.
they already believe that it is fully auto, that people have fully automatic guns and are killing people with them. So the fact that it becomes a reality and that we can own them is no worse than the backlash we're already receiving from the people who are the most against us.
There's a good point.
I
I
don't think
totally
Ralph can
agree
come back
because
on this.
now hold on. So they've already won their argument with the bozo that came up with the quote unquote assault weapon, because in the public's mind, an assault weapon is full auto, even though that isn't what
Right.
the case is. But they've sold this false narrative, and people believe it. So we need to get it out
Right.
there to disprove it.
Senator Yee, my favorite. These guns were designed to spray bullets indiscriminately
Mr.
and
Illegal Arms
maximize
Trade?
killing power. Right? That's why they were designed, to spray bullets and maximize killing power. They're all semi-auto. Everything that's been used in all the shootings that the media claims are fully automatic are all semi-auto, aside from the 90s shoot, the LA shoot at the
Yeah,
banks. Sure, fine.
The bank
But,
shooting
I mean,
was a-
there's a great picture of all different firearms and then what the media thinks they are, and every one of them is AK-47, except the AK-47 is an M16. That is, there's no concept of reality when it comes to guns or anything past they're bad, save the children, we don't want them. Those people will always exist, whether our guns shoot 3 bullets in a trigger pull, 1, or all the magazine. They will always feel that they are murder-death machines for killing babies.
You know what we need to do
And
is
by-
we need to get PBS involved and do a thing that goes through every type of firearm that's in the current inventory one at a time, showing its features, showing it being shot, and how it doesn't compare
PBS?
to the full auto. Yeah,
Dude, just you describing
It's like the
county
most
law,
liberal
they're never
government
gonna
owned
get
channel
legal.
there is.
Yeah,
Turner Broadcasting. Turner.
Oh,
But
Turner.
you know what I mean. It's supposed to be public broadcasting, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
Did you say? Wait, did you say TBS?
You know, he said
Government controlled
PBS.
Public
Oh.
broadcasting.
Yes. Oh, okay.
That's
I
gonna,
was like,
yeah, that's gonna happen.
But guys, you got to understand. Even the uneducated masses, the low information voter, whatever you want to call them, they don't care that the gun shoots 1 bullet or 18. They don't care. They don't care
They don't
about
care at
the
all.
factual video that shows, look, guys, I can reload a 10-round magazine as fast as this 30-round magazine, and I only lose a second when I'm shooting 30 rounds, right? They don't care. No one cares. They have preconceived perceptions. The media frames it that way, and people either go, that's bullshit, or they go, damn right, let's ban them, right? The only thing in the middle is that we go, this is about protecting our rights, whether you like it or not, and that's it. And the people who are truly American will believe that, and everyone else, fuck them. And they're not Americans. They want to undermine you and take away your inalienable rights.
Maybe the discussion we should be having is everybody acts like this is a democracy when we're a constitutional republic, and there's a lot of people that really don't understand the difference. They think that if the majority wants something, they should get it, and that was wholly not how this country was founded. It was founded to protect the little guy from the 80% that wants to screw him.
They sure do cry a lot when they don't get their way, though.
Well, no, that's
that's
service
right.
to this whole argument, though, or this whole discussion, because there's no majority that's against guns. It's not a small minority that wants guns. We're the majority
I
of
was
any.
taking it over the top.
What's that?
I was going over the top with it. Even if there was a majority, even if 80% of the people believe that all guns should be gone, the Constitution was set up to protect the 20% from the 80% in a constitutional republic.
I hear
That's
you,
what
but
it's
I don't
there
want.
for.
I don't want to go with that position, because again, that's putting us in a bad position. It's not that. It's not our. We shouldn't have to say, see, on a technicality, I can have my guns. We should be I think we'd be better. We'd be doing a better service to everyone if we got those people that are either indifferent or don't know or don't care to at least understand. And then they're going to do exactly what Hosh said. They're going to either they're going to say, look, there's the facts, and the facts are that firearms are part of why this country is free, and they haven't really caused any trouble to speak of. And then, so I'm either going to take them or leave them. All this trying to divide stuff up is just a disservice. And if we make it look like, okay, everybody's against us, so we're, technically the Constitution says we shouldn't have them. We're just one step away from them just saying screw, right? Change the Second Amendment. We shouldn't be fighting when we can educate and enlighten and just stop the fight instead of trying to win the fight. Just stop the fight.
Yeah, I guess my argument is more just about how the public is screwed up in how they think in general, not necessarily with the gun thing.
Well,
yeah, right, but
they're being torn in lots of different directions.
That position is basically assuming that the public is there to be either pushed or prodded or changed or whatever. I'm suggesting, why not educate, and just then the public becomes on our side. And then we don't have to move them.
Well, that's why I said that.
Well, it's kind of going that way.
That's why I was saying the
BS
thing is.
I think so too.
Registrations are up. More. Yeah.
Well, look at the crime rate's
and
been
proportionately,
dropping
the anti-gun groups are not getting bigger proportionally. All we're getting is Bloomberg throwing more of his money out proportionally to compete with the surge that he sees in actual individuals siding with the pro-gun or the pro-freedom or the pro-right side.
Well, I put my $25 up against his, so.
If you take a micro shot of the timeline in the last, I'm going to say 6 years, we probably added somewhere on the order of, let's say, 40 million guns. I'm just throwing a number out. I didn't get it off anything particular, but we've added, let's say, 40 million guns, and our crime rate has gone down by over 20% overall in the U.S. So how are guns creating more crime? They're not. They're preventing more crime. Whether you can get down to the nitty-gritty and prove each case or not.
Yeah. Okay. So now, on a little less serious note, let's say I think we've already split the difference and said some people will want them, some people won't. But I mean, you could argue the practicality of them, because everybody, you know, full auto is really meant for suppressive fire to hold back a force or to be able to advance your soldiers to a location and keep the heads down of the enemy. But so realistically, I mean, would you want a full auto weapon that was inherently less accurate just to have one? Or I mean, what's the logic, I guess, behind wanting a full auto?
Well, it was something that we had that they took away from us. That's my logic. They took
So
away
is it
from us for no
just
reason.
really more about principle at this point than practical?
Well, no, there's
I'm
there's
gonna
more to it than
call
that.
the
There's
whole premise
the whole
of
idea of
I'll-
parity of force.
I'll frame- I'll frame
if
you
you're
an
gonna take
argument.
the-
Hold on, one at a time.
I'll frame you a
And
constitutional
you have a
argument.
parity of force issue there. And
I think y'all are lagging. All right, go ahead, Sandy.
no, I was just saying that there's the parity of force argument that is inherent in the Second Amendment, at least the way I interpret it. We should be able to have pretty much anything that the law enforcement or the military can have. Now, I'm going to stop short of Abrams tanks and things like that, but you know what I'm saying. At least at an infantry level.
You can own an Abrams tank.
Well,
You
yeah.
can afford
I
it.
mean,
Well,
But
I suppose so.
the whole reason it was set up in the Constitution was that the militia, being the people, would have more armaments than the standing army, so that the standing army could not be used by the government to take our ability to be free away. And if you look at it that way, any arm that the military uses, we should have access to.
Agreed. That's what I'm saying. That parity of force. And so that right there is a good enough reason for me.
all right, now what were you calling bullshit on, G-Webs?
On the whole question that basically is based on the premise that you said full auto is inherently less accurate, and that's, I believe, wrong. I think if anyone with practice can do anything with a machine that they want to, probably all kinds of incredible cool stuff. If we would have had the last couple of decades with the explosion in firearms training and concentration on tactics and evolution of form and abilities that people have gained, with that kind of dynamic in the last decade or so, if we would have had full autos readily available, we'd see some incredibly awesome, cool competitions out there using full autos, and it would be, make Top Shot look like kindergarten.
Well, plus also, if you had civilians that were learning before they went into the military how to properly shoot a fully automatic weapon, they would be a better soldier
No.
for our army.
I mean, I'm not trying to just be everything Luke says I'm against, but honestly, I don't think we need to even talk about the military here. Screw the military. Who cares if they have full auto? They also have boots. We're not talking about boots. It's just a tool that they have that we're happen to be talking about. Has nothing to do with the conversation, though. And again, that is that whole if we give into that, and the reason I'm bringing it up and highlighting it is if we just keep letting that happen, like full autos for the military. So here's why we have to defend our reasons for wanting it. Here's my justification for wanting something that's really for the military. Bullshit. It's just another thing. So why would somebody need a hammer that can run off of air and run nails when we all know that a carpenter needs to be able to seat each nail individually so that we know that house has the strength to keep the second floor up off the ground for the children. What if a child's in the basement and a carpenter had thrown in a nail with one of these automatic, high capacity air nailers, and he could have been drunk on the job for all we know. So I mean, we can demonize any piece of machinery, is what I'm trying to say, and cast the blame off on the item instead of the individual. So if we think that full auto is going to start all kinds of crimes or whatever, then let's talk about that issue. But if we're going to talk about stuff like this amongst ourselves, I think we're doing ourselves a disservice, just like I say, write off full auto as being inaccurate. that's crap. I mean, again, we've got all kinds of crazy muzzle devices and stuff that people have been doing to keep semi-auto controllable. Imagine, again, if we would have had the last decade of innovation with full autos all over the place, we'd have some massively cool, CNC designed, brakes that make the AK-74 brakes from Russia, put them to shame. We'll come up with all kinds of cool ways to be able to shoot 2 or 3 rounds at the same time or something with the same recoil impulse. I mean, who knows what people could have done if we wouldn't have inhibited our natural innovation.
I agree with that.
That's what I'm calling bullshit on.
Plus, who knows what people are going to do with their guns? I said it in the internal, but that's a whole new competition, right? Now you buy a gun and you customize it, you modify it, you make the action as smooth as possible so that you can dump rounds faster than anyone, and you get into a competition of timing how fast you can drain a magazine.
Like a hot saw competition.
This goes, a lot of this goes back to something that I said the other day, and it's worth saying again. Maybe our argument needs to be that it's either a gun or it's not a gun. And the gun, you can call it a tool or an implement or whatever you want, but it's either a gun or not a gun. It doesn't matter if it's select fire or semi-auto or revolver or whatever. It's either a gun or it's not a gun. And we're allowed to have guns, so we should have guns. And if you don't define them out the way that they have been, then it's not an argument about whether we should have full auto or not. It's just an argument, do we get to have guns or do we not get to have guns? It's pretty basic, right? That makes sense to anybody, or am I just off the rails here?
I think that's one way.
No, it makes totally good sense if you get rid of the whole 1968 thing and everything that goes with it. I mean, because that's really where all that comes from. I mean, ultimately, that's the goal, that we should be trying to get rid of it.
I mean, the 30-something Act has to go with it, but the 68 is the bigger part of it, yeah. Because they started defining it. The shotgun has to have a barrel so long, and a rifle that's no longer this long is now a pistol. If you cut off the buttstock or whatever, who cares? It either fires a projectile or it doesn't. How fast it can fire it, how many it can fire, how many rounds the magazine holds, doesn't matter. It's either a gun or a firearm, or however you want to end up with our end term for these tools that we own. It's either that or it's not. Right?
Yeah, and normally I would try to think it can go even further and just say it's this piece of property, but we do kind of have to say there's firearms that exist because the Second Amendment is there to draw that line to say that well, yeah, exactly, that the government can't touch these because these are firearms and they can't touch them.
Right. 100%. Both of you, I agree with 100%. And I mean, don't get me wrong.
Get the message out.
Don't get me wrong. You got to call it a gun because there are liabilities associated with that, both personal responsibility and liabilities that you could incur with exercising these rights.
There's liability involved with owning a hammer, but I don't have to carry special insurance for a hammer because I might decide to whack you over the head with it.
Well, yeah, but then... Well, no, you could still get sued, right? I mean, you could still get sued no matter what, so keep that in mind. But I can't throw a hammer
That's because of my action, not because... But I'm going to get sued because of my action of smacking you with the hammer, not because I owned a hammer, and the hammer can be used to smack you in the head, right?
Or not because it was a hammer, it's because you smacked it, not because it was a hammer. Right.
Yeah, it's the act that I did, not that I did it with a hammer. I could have used a baseball bat, I could have used a logging chain. It smacked you in the head. That's what I should be getting in trouble for, not because I did it with a hammer or a chain.
Oh, yeah, well, no, we agree on that. We agree on that, for sure. Again. Trying to kill this wine bottle. Yeah.
Already beat you to it, my friend.
I've been waiting for you to.
Did you have to start drinking because you got dissed so bad on that point earlier?
Yeah, I chugged a wine bottle straight. No, I still hold firm in that belief, even though I don't want it to be that way.
I hear you. Somebody's got to play Yankees role in here.
Yeah, well.
Snap.
That's fine. There's no way that someone's going to have that hanging on their head. And it would get...
But I mean, what about it? I'm just saying, why does it have to be like that? Why can't it be like, in spite of them hating the fact that it happened to them, and now they have to have that instead of
Tell me when that's happened last time.
Well, yeah, but that's a Yankee thing. Who cares if it hasn't happened before? We can break new ground once in a while, right?
That would be nice, But at the same time, prior performance is somewhat indicative of future,
Yeah,
future
but-
results.
Well,
so.
Help me out.
But
not
that's
I
like
didn't catch your
making the argument. I mean, it's a double-sided coin. You can make the argument that an NFA full auto has not been used in a crime, presumably for almost 100 years. But on the
Well-
other hand,
Well, we're not
on the
arguing
other hand,
that
they
Their
would say,
count-
well, look, no, hold on. But the other side of that argument they would make is, well, because it's been so heavily regulated, that's why it hasn't happened.
Exactly. Yeah, and so that you're kind of in a no-win if you go that route.
I don't think that the argument is that point, though. The argument is, does the Hughes Amendment apply to trusts? That's really
Back to the topic.
So then in my opinion, it'll be as simple as them amending that and saying, oh, we need to add trust to this individuals, and that'll be the end of it.
No, so who's in charge of amending that, though?
But can you do that? Exactly. That's an act of
It's-
Congress.
it's-
That'd
it's
have
a-
to be voted on.
It's a law. It's not just an arbitrary rule that was put out by
Right.
an organization.
Right.
And to change a
Right,
law,
but
you can't
that's
just
a small majority.
speak it into being.
That's
Well, and
That's
the
a
other
small
thing you got
majority.
to think about too, you're going into November here, and there's a high likelihood that the Democrats aren't going to control the Senate when it's over and done with, and there's no way they're going to take the House. So, I mean, it is possible that could happen. I mean, if you get the right senators behind it, who knows, right?
Yeah. And I look at the last time that the Republicans had a supermajority and they didn't get rid of the 1968 Gun Control Act or any of that shit. So, unless we have
That would
enough.
have been pretty ballsy, though. They had no call to do it. Like, no one was urging them to. I mean, we can't expect politicians to just out of nowhere do what we want.
Well, they're
with
making
no
all these laws that
influence.
we don't ask for.
Well, no, but the
It sounds
squeaky
a lot
wheel,
like
right?
we're-
You got to be the squeaky wheel.
No, you can't look at it like that. That's looking at it in a vacuum. They are being asked for by a small minorities here and there, either people that want pork spending or people that have crazy-ass agendas. So we need to be the people with crazy-ass agendas and some money behind us, and we need to tell them that, look, either we're a wall here that you can't cross whenever you try to push crap on us from these crazy-ass ideas, and once in a while we're going to push back and you're going to do what we tell you.
I'd like to
Right.
make a clarification because I don't think you meant we need to be the crazy assholes. See, there's a difference. A person that just wants to own something and be responsible and have it is not crazy. The person who wants to take something away, a freedom from an individual, that's the crazy person. Right now, those people are the ones that are the vocal minority, that have been the vocal minority for centuries, ever since we started getting together in social groups. They're the groups on both sides, whatever side of the argument you exist on, that want to take something away from another group. Those are the crazy people. The people that we are in behalf of are saying, I just want to own something. I want to be responsible for it. I want to use it in the way that I see fit, as long as I'm not endangering or taking away the rights of another individual. We should totally openly accept that in all cases, almost all cases. This being one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of calls for common sense across the board. I agree with you.
Or just
It'd be nice if it was that way.
that there's somebody right next to the person that lacks common sense that smacks them upside the head and goes, we don't just take things away from people. That is not what
Right.
this country is based on. We don't gang up and try and take away the rights of individuals. We don't do that.
No, we just gang up and try and make people accept things that they don't like, whether they want to or not.
Well, I mean, that's the other thing. If it's not take the right away from you, it's we need to gang up and shame you because you want something that is evil, bad, or you don't follow the lockstep that everybody else is supposed to believe. I don't want to take the subject away, but it all starts with that, right? How did we go from automatic weapons are fine, then in the 80s we need to ban them? because gangbangers started shooting each other up with automatic weapons, and they couldn't aim for shit because they're automatic weapons and shitty automatic weapons, and they hit bystanders because they lacked training. They lacked training.
Technically, the answer to your question is how did we go from everything was fine to not being able to own them? One prick, one guy, and if you agree with the people that see it, illegally or inappropriately added it to the end of a thing. This was not a big cry from the populace or even a small minority. This was one guy who took action at the time in Congress. So this was not prompted by anything really except for this one guy's agenda.
So I will say, and you can disagree with me, but generally I believe that society leads where the government goes. Because generally, again, and there are exceptions, and this may be the outlier of this particular instance, but generally, the politicians who step forward and propose something that is gravely unpopular usually get swatted down hard, right? Slavery was not abolished for a long time because
I don't disagree with you, but the people that they wronged here were such a small minority that they just didn't have a chance to make an outcry, and once they did, no one listened.
Correct, but the perception of society at that point in the 80s, whether you call it the media, the movies, what crime was happening on the streets, whatever, the perception, again...
You're creating something that wasn't there. It wasn't like what we got right now where you got a small group stirring up other people saying, oh, let's go take their guns away. It was like G-Web said, it was one person with an agenda that tacked it onto the tail end of a bill. And once it went into law, everybody's like, oh, shit, we didn't even know this was coming. Now it's here. Now we can't get rid of it because nobody else gives a rat's ass. There was no public outcry to ban or do the 68 Gun Control Act.
And then just as there was no public outcry to enact the stupid Hughes Amendment, there was no public outcry after to address what you're saying, in my opinion, because since 1934 they've been regulated. So again, only the tiny percentage of people that even wanted full auto had to go figure out how to, jump the hurdles and pay to get it. So the vast majority, just like now, everyone says, oh, full auto is illegal. It's always been illegal. Well, no. We've just had 2 generations actually grow up and live, because most of our parents' generation, the what do you call it, the baby boomers, all grew, were born after 34 or whatever, right? So they grew up their entire lives with machine guns being removed by some extent from society because of that stupid registration process. So unless you happen to be a friend of one of the very few people that legally owned firearms after 34, machine guns after 34, you would have also thought that machine guns were illegal. So in '86, when Asshole gets them removed because of the Hughes Amendment, then there was probably a blip in the... I mean, I was a gun guy, and I didn't remember that happening. I was alive. I was aware of this. I was in high school. I didn't remember that being a public outcry. If anything, it was probably a mention on CNN or whatever the CNN of the time was, and then an article in the big national newspapers, and then that was it. And then maybe some backlash in the national gun magazines, the periodicals of the time. But there was no internet. There was no network of ways to get that information out that this wrong had been done to us as firearms owners. The NRA, unfortunately, didn't champion it. So that's why it happened then, but I don't think that means it's going to happen now. We have a different circumstance now.
Got it.
Yeah, there was people that didn't know for years after that law was passed that they might even been violating the law because we didn't have this instantaneous dissemination of information that we have now.
Well, people knew to make a full auto you had to register it and everything, at least if they asked.
You know what I mean?
But I'll bet you that you're right that there was probably people making full autos, out on some farm somewhere because they just didn't know to ask. They needed to register.
Yep.
But honestly, again, who makes full auto? Just somebody who's a hobbyist and wants to do it or have some fun shooting at targets or something. It's not something that most people are out there seeking.
All right, well, I kind of got an idea. What if, all right, see, so a lot of times we're asking, well, how are we going to defeat this? How are we going to defeat this? How are we going to defeat this?
It's easy, just move.
Okay, yeah. Usually that's the answer that I get. But what if you just actually, instead of doing that, you just took a step forward? And what I mean by a step forward, so let's just keep the NFA kind of the way it is, the 1930 something whatever, and we take back just the 86. So therefore, you can get a full auto, a 2014 model. I don't have to buy some 30-year-old antique. There's only like a couple 100,000 of them left. You know what I'm saying? I'm not in that niche market. Or make them, but whatever. I mean, like if I can buy an AR-15 lower for like $30 more, because it really doesn't cost that much more. Let's get real.
Right.
Like an average gun,
tens of dollars
maybe
difference.
like 10% at worst. So instead of asking the question, how do we reverse it? Instead of asking the question of how do we reverse this, and you know what I'm saying, like how do we win this? You know what I'm saying, like right now, like all right, if the topic of abortion came up, you don't win it by annihilating or getting the whole goddamn thing. You either move it back a little bit in months or whatever late term it want. You know what I'm saying? Like if you really want to win, you take a small step, because we haven't taken a fucking step yet in a long time. Federally, laws.
Yeah, but really, once you broke that bridge where you could create new photos, the lowers we have now are good to go. You just need the trigger assembly, but unless they've got the block out. But
So I actually do agree with you on the one step forward, but we got to keep in mind that it's always easier to enact laws than it is to overturn laws.
Exactly.
So generally, the cost that goes into overturning one bad law is tenfold in cost what it costs to get
You're
the law.
keeping the law. You're altering the law. You're only altering.
Is there a better way to spend money, though?
no, not in my
We
opinion.
gotta take small victories. I think.
We need to send a message to the lawmakers that other than some new technology-based thing that might really hurt people, that we don't need more laws. We need to go back and review old laws and sunset some of them or whatever that are not needed, including the ones that we're talking about.
But Haas just said that's the hardest thing to do, is to overturn an old law instead of creating a new one.
If the general attitude of the country is to the legislature, we want to get rid of, we've got over 80,000 freaking laws, right?
Yeah.
If you give them an edict, if the edict from the people is, let's say we've got 80,000 laws, we want to reduce it down to 20,000 laws because this is just fucking ridiculous, and give them that marching order and keep telling them either you're going to do this, we're going to vote your ass out and get somebody else that will, eventually they'll start working on it.
If you can get pocket senators, well, yeah, you're right, because you got two options, right? If you can get pocket senators that agree with you and you can build a majority from some grassroots effort that goes forward and says, you're right, we need to get rid of NFA or whatever it is, anything, and they go and change it through the political mechanism of removing a law, that's one thing. The second option from the people is you try and appeal the law. You have to prove damages, and you have to go after it, and you have to either say this is against my rights or I've been damaged XYZ, and it's usually tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars to even launch a legal campaign like that. I mean, take the Peretta case in San Diego. The NRA had to get involved. The CRPA had to give funds. The leader of the CRPA was ultimately the one who infused the most amount of money because they became a plaintiff or in the case against San Diego in overturning their CCW laws. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. We all benefit from it, which is great. Don't get me wrong. Hey, distribute the money around. But that's a lot of money.
Yeah, you need a cash cow.
Yeah.
So you really need a patron, somebody with some deep pockets to want to go after this Hughes Amendment then.
Pick up the Koch brothers.
Or you get the whole public. If you get the whole public along with you, you're not spending as much money to try and fight against it because it's everybody's attitude. And it costs you a lot less to get a lot of this shit unfucked.
It'd be easy to collect funds if people thought there was a chance of winning too, or at least at least having it heard.
So it's a really funny thing that you bring up, Luke. Because you're totally right. If you don't have the money, the best thing you can do is motivate the people to action. Now, okay, so here's straight up how it goes down in California. And I know we're a shitty state when it comes to gun laws and whatnot, but we actually do have a lot of hunters. We have a lot of gun owners. A huge percentage of the country is in California as far as gun owners. And every time there's a hearing in any county that's anti-hunting, whether it's coyote or bear or whatever it is, it's always filled with liberal, anti-gun, pro-PETA, whatever, loud talkers. And the people who want to keep the rights, who want to exercise the rights, are barely there. The CRPA, the NRA, Cal Guns, all those different groups try and get the word out. They have the voice, they have the eyes. The emails are hitting them in the face. They are hitting their target market in the face, saying they are coming after your guns, not only your guns, but your hunting dogs. PETA wants to take away our rights in California to own hunting dogs, okay? And they are the smallest majority that show up every time when people bitch. Every time.
And they are the squeaky wheel types, and they get hurt.
Yep.
Nobody else shows up. Yeah, that happens here in Oregon all the time.
There's those, but back east we get those, or those are the ones that actually show up. It's the suburbanite that probably doesn't show up.
Well, right, the people that are affected the most, they don't have
the
time.
Suburbanites are usually
the closet Democrat gun on.
Suburbanites are your hunters, right? Either rural or suburban people are your hunters, right?
Not really. You probably don't have a suburban hunting population whatsoever.
Oh, in the United States, the majority of hunters are rural and suburban people.
No, well, like if you say Oklahoma City, yeah, but not if you say Washington D.C. Maybe Nova.
What is there to hunt in Washington D.C.?
Politicians.
Dude, there's a lot of fucking deer. Our police,
Lawyers, politicians.
No.
What do they call those people from other countries?
I was actually driving the city the other day, and I drove right past a congressman who was outside of a restaurant, shaking somebody's hand.
Well, yeah, of course.
That's what they do. You know what's really funny? Because there's so many politicians, you could be like at a nice restaurant and not know that you're sitting next to one probably, unless you knew every single body who was in Congress. It's pretty funny. I've probably been on a couple.
Yeah, it's less than 1,000 people basically have the power to tell you what you can and can't do. You know, over 330 million. It's kind of crazy.
Hey, but we put them there.
I know. I hear you. It's the system.
You guys should move to Switzerland. You guys should move to Switzerland if you don't like these laws.
If anybody wants to understand the mindset of the squeaky wheel types that we are up against, the people that want to take your rights away, whatever side you live on, look up the book, The True Believer. It was written in the early 1900s. It is an amazing book that covers the mindset of tons of people. Almost all the people that you've met that want to tell you why a certain lifestyle, a certain way of doing something is wrong and that it needs to be laws to take it away, covers why they feel that way and how you should treat them or handle them. The True Believer.
Well, that's what I was going to ask then. So if it's since the 1900s that this type of personality traits or whatever
it's been around.
Been aware. So there should be then established ways to deal with them, or to guide them, or to parry their, their robotic.
It's a deeper. It's almost, I don't want to say a disease, but it's a mental affliction in some cases, in a lot of cases, and it's not like a sickness. I'm not saying it's a sickness. It's hard to explain if you haven't read the book.
It's like hardwired, you're saying?
No, it's just that there's certain social issues that come up that make them want to go a certain direction. Mass movements
like Yankee was
in general. Go ahead.
It's about like Yankee was talking about when we went to the that gun rights rally that we went to. Everybody's talking about abortion and other issues when we were really there to talk about guns. I mean, there's these core issues that keep getting in the middle of everything and clouding the whole argument.
Well, they sometimes get in the way of everything, but they're not always in the way of everything. I can't imagine that every Second Amendment rally that they had at the various capitals got in all that stuff.
Shit.
Jesus.
But Hosh, like you're saying, I know what you're saying, where, like the personality or that person with that kind of traits or whatever, is can be defined. I'm just saying, right. if it's something like they like to go with the flow, or they like to follow the majority, then can't you create the majority, being pro-gun, and then you'll gain those people instead of fighting those people? Or is it not possible?
If you had the opportunity to take all those people out shooting, you're probably right. But the reality is that a lot of those people are in the perception of a vision of the future. The now doesn't matter. The enjoying the time right now means nothing. It is all a vision of the future and what they can achieve and somebody else's opinion of what their time is worth. So sometimes these people are wounded individuals that can't enjoy the now. They can't find the place in time to enjoy what they have. What do people who shoot enjoy? The now. We go shooting. We go enjoy our hobby. The people who want to take that away from you have a vision of the future because they can't necessarily enjoy their now with the thought of you enjoying what you do personally.
Interesting.
That is the essence of the person that believes in a mass movement or a true believer in the sense of these ideas of taking away something from individuals because they want a goal and they see the goal in the future and all they need to do is give everything they have right now to get there. And even when they get there, they won't know what to do once they have it. It's like that whole I'm wrought with vengeance and I want to bring my vengeance upon thee, and when I achieve my vengeance I'm left with nothing. It's the same thing. Whether or not they have the actual vengeance or they have a belief in seeing this vision come to fruition, or they're being told that this is the best way, that is what they believe. That is what they focus on.
Well, then are we doomed to there's always that percentage of the population that's like that? And
yes. There will always be that. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting.
It is always there. You always have to account for it. The question is that whether you can offset it as easily as possible without expending more time than they're expending. Because remember, they have nothing better to do. Their whole focus is to take away what you have. That is what they want.
So you fight your group think against theirs. So the idea is to get your group think up and running, right? So.
Well, it sounds like for that kind of situation, you're not going to be able to finesse them. You're not going to be able to talk logically with them. You're just not going to be able to sweet talk them into to change in their position. So it sounds like the only way to really confront that or to deal with that would be with bigger numbers, make a bigger voice than they can.
Well, you have to seed society. So if the group of people that wants to take something away from them or from you is a small minority, the only thing you can have is a rooting hold in a majority. The people who actually go out and enjoy the pastime of X, Y, and Z. That's why I've always said women are largely the best thing you can do to root something in a society. Gun-owning women are the savior and will be the largest important thing going forward in all of our hobbies in whatever kind of shooting you do, because they root the society. If you think about all of the...
To be clear, you're talking about the women that are in bikinis and high heels when they shoot.
Right, because that really helps push forward the demographic. But no, I mean,
lots of beer.
Moms, your sisters, your wives, people who are pretty close, or they might already be there, that just need to be more actively involved. And I'm not saying you can, come on, women, we're going to go shoot. I'm not saying like that. I'm saying that they are as equal to us in this hobby as anything else. So you might as well include them, bring them in on it, and make it, if you can, open the door and let them take it. Let them own it and do the whole thing. And don't give them pink camouflage and don't give them pink guns. Let them, shoot what they want to shoot.
In a way, that's all real, but to present it like it's the majority, it's kind of pessimistic, though. Because I don't that part of the equation is a small percentage. I mean, you've got zealotry is present in almost every aspect of life. Abortion activists, religion, etc. But it's not the majority. It's like the majority of Christians aren't people that are not going to be happy till they make everybody else a Christian. The majority of Christians just believe in this set of moralities, and they live their life by it, and they enjoy their life. It's kind of the same, I would say, with gun rights. There's that subset of zealotry, and unfortunately, those people that subset of zealotry, they're also manipulated by a larger group of people that have a financial and a power broker interest in people being disarmed, and they are able to manipulate those people. And unfortunately, they also spend a lot of time manipulating the zealots on our side, too, and making them think it's a good idea to go out and be a bad influence. It's a good idea to make yourself look bad. It's a good idea to act like you're anti-government because that's how we're going to win. When in reality, all that does is it pushes more people that aren't zealots to go, wow, look at those crazies with guns. I really don't care now if the zealots do take their guns.
I don't think we necessarily disagree. I think that you're right. There's zealots all over the place, and they all are, again, they see a future goal as more important than the now. But largely this group, all the people here, are enjoying the now, the freedoms that they do have. But that those small groups, those small zealots that you mentioned, they have been incrementally winning small battles over time that have incrementally taken away rights.
Well, zealots are never happy until they reach their ideal.
And they'll never reach it.
You know, if 90% of the world, if 95% of the world was Christians, that still is not good enough to a zealot.
But I mean, even if they reach it, they'll never be happy. Then they'll start culling their own herd, saying you are not religious enough, right? It doesn't end. It never ends. Those people always exist, right?
Those people always
I think it's in a lot of ways it's like the people that are shooting 9mm. Like,
I don't think we can always. I don't think we can say those people will never be happy. Because some people, when they reach their goal, will be happy, but there will always be a subset of people that think it should be different or think it should be more.
Right.
But there are some people that will be happy when they reach their goal.
Or in the process of them reaching their goals and they get to that 90% Christians, there's going to be people that go, hey, I didn't really want to be Christian. Now I found out more about this. This is bullshit. I don't want it, right? So you've created your own zealotry in the process of creating your absolutism, right? You've just done it in backwards. So, again, we're not really disagreeing, and that's why I'm saying society in general will always have this aspect. But the only thing you can do to fight zealotry, and particularly people who believe in mass movements or see this future goal that they want to achieve, is you have to root society in it. You have to root society in this way of life or this style or this hobby or the whatever so that they enjoy the now and they don't try and see this future mindset that the zealots are trying to tell them to go in one direction or not.
Well, unfortunately, you get people on both sides that would much rather look to the sky and see what's falling than they would look to the ground and see how high they can climb. They would just rather deal with, oh, we're on a slippery slope, all the time, instead of dealing with what's actually happening. And you see that in most every cause, and the best way to deal with zealotry is to marginalize them. If you can marginalize them, then you disarm them.
Until they gain footing, and then you have your modern-day communists, and you have your French revolutionaries, and all the examples of history where mass movements where people started out as zealots became the norm.
I don't really see any modern-day communists that are gaining ground anywhere, so I don't know.
No, I'm saying in moments in history. I'm talking about your Stalinists, right? Those movements.
Well, even
those all had their moments where the majority were either forced or came along and believed the way they believed.
Well, see, that was the thing. They weren't marginalized. They grew stronger and stronger, and they were allowed to be a viable option. They were treated as if these people have a possible solution. And then when things got bad, their possible solution, they had the power to enforce their possible solution. If they had truly been marginalized and forced out of existence, they would never have taken power.
Yeah, but then stick with that and take the Stalinists as an example. The reason why the Stalinists ended up taking over and communism got a foothold in Russia is because the bourgeoisie could not create a social root network and make their way of life something that was something society understood. They hid like the roaches run when the lights come on. They ran away from the proletariat and the communist mindset of Marx, saying that this is the direction we need to go. We need to fight for, socially owned everything. The bourgeoisie just said, shut up, we need to keep quiet, well, they fought back in some ways, but largely what did they do? They kept creeping back. They didn't go forward and say, no, society is rooted this way, and let me explain why. I think we're doing that, and like I said, it's the direction with gun owners going towards women, going towards people that are actively hunting and then taking their food and cooking it. That is huge in California right now. All the young people my age, the yuppie guys from the urban environments, all they want to do is take these hunting tours where they can go kill the animal, gut the animal, and prepare the animal all themselves.
Yeah,
it's a small group, but it's growing.
That's about as rooted in society, though, as skinny jeans are. That'll fade as a fads fade because the necessity for cooking your own food isn't really there, and I don't think it's going to become a normal part of society again. But
there are parts of America where that is already the norm, And all that is doing by bringing in people that are urbanites that want to become hunters and want to go from field to plate with their food, all that's doing is making them acknowledge that they are more in tune with the people who are already doing this than they thought. So it's bringing what they thought was disparate groups into the larger whole of one society, which is good.
Yeah, that's true, but I don't even think that it's a norm anywhere. I mean, I'm from rural West Virginia. I mean, rural fucking West Virginia. Dirt roads out to my mom's for miles. And the majority of people out there don't hunt. They drive the dirt road for 6 miles to the grocery store and buy their food. So, I mean, I don't think there's anywhere that it's the norm that people hunt for their food. But I don't think there are places where it isn't demonized. Not demonized, but marginalized.
I'm going to suggest there's been a few too many bottles of wine in this conversation about full auto. Because we're kind of off topic at this point.
Is that what we're talking about, full autos? Because I came in, we were talking about something different.
So I think Stone Guy's left us at this point.
Yes.
Well, that's what happens when the narrator walks away. He can't
Who's
leave.
running this thing? Yeah.
So we were originally talking, since Yankee and Digital Prophet, who else? Other people have joined us after the fact. We were talking about the concept that with the changes that Obama did in the NFA trust, how that might potentially open up a window for new manufacture of machine guns, because the Hughes Amendment wouldn't technically apply. So I don't know where we were at with that, but I think that we've been talking for quite a while. Obviously, cut off a little bit there, but it was an interesting sidetrack. I mean, I think everybody was digging the points, because they were, at least for our conversations, pretty new, except for the hunting stuff. All that other stuff was pretty insightful. I thought that was pretty good. But I think one thing we should probably still talk about is just the hypothetical, let's say that it gets passed or whatever, down to the nitty-gritty. What full auto would you get? And I don't know, how many credit cards would you get, or would you sell vehicles? Not that they'd cost so much anymore, but wouldn't we want multiples? Anyway, anybody want to jump in?
I'm going to go on record of being one of the people that if they were legal tomorrow, if they were manufacturing them at a normal rate and they were available at my local gun shop, I can't guarantee I would buy one. If I did, I might buy one for the novelty of it, but I just don't know that I would ever buy one.
It's not going to be as expensive as you think by that point.
But firing them will be.
It will be. But then once again, the price of the novelty becomes a lot less.
And I don't see any I don't really foresee any real situations in my lifetime where I'm going to be part of a fighting force, even if things get bad. I see that being more of a you're on your own with your family and your friends kind of a thing, not so much as I'm now part of this mobilized military. And without that fighting force, I don't see a lot of tactical advantage to full auto. So I just
no. But if you could buy a full auto AR lower for $150, who the hell would it?
Why would I? I don't need one.
Well, if you would, for every person that says they wouldn't, for $150, 5 people would buy 5 more.
Okay, well, that's great. They can. I'd be all for them buying it, but I wouldn't want it because I wouldn't.
Oh, you're so silly. You bought a Glock 42 just to say you had one.
But then I sold it. I didn't keep it.
Right. You would, but you.
Well, no, he's just saying he wouldn't enjoy going out and playing full auto, but obviously there would be tons of people that would super enjoy it.
Don't be silly.
No, some people would love it, but to me, all I do when I pull a full auto trigger, if Uncle Sam's paying for the ammo, that's one thing. If I'm paying for the ammo, all I'm like is, man, there just went a new, a new watch. There just went, new tires for the car. There just went, etc.
I think I'd have to go with an MP5. Sorry, just to pick one.
I mean, you don't have to shoot it full auto all the time, or you don't have to just hold the trigger down all the time, right? I mean, you'll get to know the gun you buy.
Do 200 miles an hour. I just like having it, knowing that it'll do that. Doesn't mean I'm gonna go out.
If the law gets reversed, think about how much cheaper it's going to be to buy a full auto AK-47 than a Corvette, right? It's going to be much cheaper, and you'll enjoy it just as much.
It's only going to go up about like 10%.
On the weekends and occasionally, and when you have fun, you can invite your friends out, just like a houseboat or something. You don't use it every day. You don't live on it. It's not your house. But when you want to go out and get drunk on the lake with a bunch of your friends, the houseboat's awesome. So take your full auto out every once in a while, and heck, you mean your daughter's like boyfriends or whatever. Like once they know you got a couple of full autos, I mean that's a whole other subject, right?
Well, I think the idea is if I'm buying a new AR. And a full auto is no more expensive than a regular, why would I not buy a full auto? Right? I mean, I think that's the point.
Yeah.
Having the option to do so, not I need this as a necessity, that this is out there, this is available, I should own it because there should be no restrictions against me, right? So whenever I go to the store, I should have the option to buy full auto, just the same as a police officer that comes behind me that can buy a full auto.
Yeah, you should have the right to buy one. I just don't particularly want one. I mean, there's, like I said, I'd probably buy one. I wouldn't go out and buy 3 or 4.
But whenever you went to buy a rifle and they said, well, do you want full auto or not? Wouldn't you say full auto every time?
No, because full auto has its own. It has its own issues. You don't. A full auto rifle is not the same in performance and reliability and accuracy, etc., as a semi-auto, bolt action, lever action, etc.
Well, we're talking about like an AR select fire gun.
Well, I wouldn't buy a lot of ARs, so that's where we're disconnecting there, I guess.
Well, what full auto would you be referring to?
Well, I'm just saying, if I bought a full auto, I'd only probably buy one. I mean, it wouldn't matter if every time I went to the store to buy an AR, if they said, do you want it in full auto, because I don't go buy ARs because I'm not really an AR fan. I've got 1 or 2 of them, and that's all I care to have. Some people love ARs, and if I would see them, yeah, okay, they'd probably go out and buy all full auto ARs. I don't want any more.
Okay, so the next Glock you go to buy, they say, well, do you want full auto or semi? Selectable or semi?
I'd probably still go with semi-auto because I would be concerned about the reliability of a full auto.
But you would still buy it to test it and make a video out of it.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean I'd go buy them and keep them and have
okay,
so
all right. So
well, why are we trying to? White guy's going to get an extra $1 if he buys a full auto. What do you care if he buys a full auto?
Yeah. All right. So let me ask you this: if full auto was in stock everywhere and could keep up with demand for 30 days, how many full autos do you think would sell in the first 30 days?
Let me just say this: if I was to get into a shooting match with someone from 50 feet away at a shot in a mall, and we both had a gun with equal capacity, I wish they would have a full auto handgun against my semi-auto.
That's great, but how many do you think would sell in the first 30 days is my question.
I don't know or care. I don't know.
Well, I mean, like I'm throwing a hypothetical question.
I am going to suggest that the same question could be said for if they made heroin legal tomorrow. How many people are going to go get heroin? Probably the exact same amount of people. So I would say a percentage of the people that like firearms are going to go buy full auto, and then it's where it's going to stay for a long time, because just like Yankees Illustrating, not even all gun owners are going to want to run out and get full auto. I can imagine a bunch of old guys.
For every gun owner that doesn't, like for example, like for every gun owner that doesn't like Yankee, I'm pretty sure, well, Ralph would buy who knows how many. I'd probably get like a dozen.
Well,
you know what I'm saying? Exactly. So like that's my question. Is like if we had to throw a nationwide number, how many do you think would sell in 30 days? It's just a silly question.
I think that it's silly because they would never be able to keep up with supply.
Well, do you have a dozen ARs right now?
No.
Then why don't you have a dozen ARs? Because we've always dealt with the issue that ARs could become illegal tomorrow.
Because I plan to move states where there's still
buy a dozen full autos just because you can get a full auto now. Why haven't you run out and bought a dozen ARs?
Put it like this: if that ban, put it like this, like if I felt that the news was reporting that ban was coming down 90 to 10%, and I really knew there's no way I could move somewhere else and get another lower, I probably would have got a dozen if I knew that law was coming down nationwide. Yes. Why wouldn't I?
You buy a dozen semi-autos or a dozen full autos only if you knew they were about to be outlawed again.
Or put it like this: if they came on the streets right now, I'd get them because I know it probably wouldn't last my lifetime. You know what I'm saying? So I'd get them while I could get them.
No, that's crazy. I think that there would be people that do that, but I don't think you'd need to think that.
That's what I'm saying. Like once I have the first dozen, I don't care. I'm fine. I'm relaxed. Then I can take my pace. Throughout a lifetime.
Here's the thing that we're not talking about technically or realistically is that you could get a sear. So anybody could just go buy a sear for like $1 or 50 cents or however much a sear would cost to make, and then drop it in their ARs that they already own.
Yes, that was one thing I was going to say. I would probably have parts on hand to make my ARs full auto if I had more ARs. But
well, I mean, come on, they don't all have the shelf in them.
No, okay, yeah, right. Not everyone, but I'm saying that would be possible for people to do for majority of the ARs.
Yeah, but I mean, think of all the AK kits that are out there, where AK kits came in as demilled, and they have full trigger assemblies in them from their original, manufacturer. You could just take
Yeah,
that.
I can't imagine those parts just got thrown away.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
No way did those parts get thrown away.
They're sitting in bins somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, spinners for days. Everybody's got the parts for that trigger assembly.
So to answer his question, you guys, only me and Yankees chimed in, I think. What do you guys think? Would they be able, if they had an unlimited supply, how many would there be sold?
I'd definitely be down for a his and hers MP5s.
I didn't even really think of the submachine gun option, to be honest with you. I was really only focused in, larger caliber rifle automatics. But yeah, I mean, that opens.
Why wouldn't they make little Scorpions in 380? They make little pocket guns.
Great. Oh, that'd be awesome. That would be so much fun. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that would be awesome.
Full auto Calicos. They already make those. That would just be them opening the gates.
God, I hate Calicos.
They really make
1022s, 100-round drums.
What is it? The AM 180 or whatever?
The AR 180.
Or no, what's the little 1022 one that they just
the
add
American
on?
180. Yeah, it's the American 180.
That shit is tight. Are those magazines even reliable? I couldn't imagine.
They would, yeah, they're decent, but they'd be a lot more reliable if, the restrictions on innovation weren't there. If the owning the firearm would be okay, then people would put all kinds of time and effort into making them. And we're not thinking about, the potential, if that's going to, I don't know, did everyone get a chance to chime in? Marine, I don't know, maybe the Marine left, but Stone Guy seems like he's gone too. But Stone Guy, we were saying, Stone Guy's back, we were saying, what gun would you get once they get rid of this law that we all know is going to get rid of?
M60.
Mine would be boring.
Belt-fed M60, yeah.
If I got one, it'd be kind of boring, and it'd still be kind of expensive because I'd want the SCAR.
Wow.
Oh, that would be expensive. Yeah, that would be expensive. That would be the least cheap of the options if it all went legal.
That's the one I would want if I was honest about which one I would want. It'd be the SCAR, so that'd be pricey.
I actually would.
Two SCARs. There's a heavy and a light. You mean the heavy?
I'd probably go with the L.
The light.
5.56, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not that bad.
It wouldn't be that expensive.
You don't have to shoot it full auto every time you touch the trigger. I mean, it's the option.
You have a selector.
My 200-mile-an-hour motorcycle.
Like oppressive, society where you guys haven't. I don't know how. Show of hands. Let's just say who's not just shot full auto, but who's had enough time to play with full auto enough trigger time to feel comfortable with full auto.
Quite a bit, but I always look at it like when you say it's just the option. But it's an option. If it's an option I wouldn't use. It's like, say, if someone said, hey, we're selling you this new Corvette, but for an extra $500, we'll put a switch in it that'll fry your electrical.
But it's not $500. It's not.
No, and it's not something that's potentially going to hurt it. But anyway, who else has shot full auto? I mean, we're under this oppressive society where people haven't had the chance to actually play with it. It's just it's like.
I mean, I've shot it, but it's.
But not enough to
Not enough to
mags where you can play with the trigger and get to learn burst. Have some idea of controllability and. You hold an AR-15 the way that you hold it because that we're shooting in semi-auto. You hold it a little bit different when you're shooting full auto because there's some muzzle rise. So again, we're living in this oppressive society where you guys don't get the chance to do that often enough, or without seeking it out. So you don't realize that full auto isn't like I said before. It's not inherently inaccurate. It's inherently accurate if you're sloppy, but just like any machine, you can master it. And there's parts that you can add to it that'll enhance the full auto manipulation of it, and we're not talking about things that are going to jump out of our hands all the time. So you could easily drop 3 rounds in a little burst on any full auto gun that you've had a chance to put a few mags through. It's just like riding a motorcycle or riding a bike. Once you've got the hang of it, you get the hang of it, and it's just adapting to each little machine's quirks.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it's enjoying those little quirks. And the same way that Stone Guy was talking about when he started shooting the AK for the first time and having that recoil impulse of the massive, heavy bolt carrier going back and forth throughout the travel of that firearm compared to the other firearms he shot, it's different when you shoot full auto guns. When you shoot a bar, it's extremely different than shooting a Glock 18, which is extremely different than, you know, an AK, and it's a lot of fun. So there's the collector's aspect of it, and then I got another thing, but I'll let you guys chime in on that. That's
Well, it just opens up another market in which people can make money in this country in businesses. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that should be something we should all be into, just in general. I mean,
that's a good point, because do you think that that's such a potential for profit that you would have gun manufacturers get behind this bill and really pushing the issue of the Form 1 and trying to see where this goes?
But is it such a potential for profit? Because if everyone's saying, well, the prices will come down, well, if they can't charge substantially more than they do a regular AR, what would be the incentive for them to change their tooling, change their
people buy new
the price. I don't think the prices would come down right away because the demand would be really high.
But generally, prices. Okay, so it's not largely going to be the major manufacturers that would be the solution. It will be the small companies that produces drop-in kits or does whatever they do for much cheaper in material costs for individual kits than it would be for an entire gun, right? Because most people already have these guns, right? I mean, that's largely where I think this is going.
Yeah, there'd be a huge market in retrofitting. You bet.
That's the cottage industry, right? Everything pops up cottage industry and then becomes major industry.
Okay, well, I have changed my mind about one thing. I would definitely buy one AR full auto lower, because I want the one that says, you know, safe, undead, and horde for semi-auto for regular undead, and horde, zombie horde for full auto. I want that one.
I like the one that says hope and change.
Oh, that's awesome.
Nice.
Okay, so
well, I mean, it sounds like with what Obama did, there is some hope and maybe some change in the offing here.
Oh, it will change. You don't have to hope about it. So we were talking about innovation a little bit. So what about, obviously, when that happens, there'll be a demand on ammo like never before, because we'll all be taking, live rounds and turning them into, lead seeds into the berms. So what about the development of new types of ammo and stuff? I can only imagine that there's going to be a massive shortage for a minute, and then hopefully they come out with, I'm thinking of the plastic and the wood rounds that they used for training back during the Cold War.
Well, there's that, or the incentive and whatnot. The money would be there for people to open up additional ammo manufacturing plants too. So, I mean, if there's a demand, it'll get filled.
Not only demand, but like a new massive scale demand that they're not just going to try to upgrade. They're going to go ahead and increase the industry.
So that would be an actual increase in demand, and that would actually cause a new manufacturing base for firearms. That's like that video I made last night. Right now, there is no actual increased demand for ammunition. There's just increased hoarding and profiteering. But if you talk to the marketers and the distributors, there's no real more shooting now than there was 5 years ago. People aren't. It's like the range people I call and talk to. They're like, yeah, we see more new faces, but we see less overall time on range than we did 5 years ago. And so there is no real extra demand. But if full autos became actually legal and people did start dumping ammo at an amazing rate, there would be an actual demand. So these companies that are sitting back now going, we're not going to start making more ammo because there's not a real sustainable demand for it, then they could change their tune.
Well, and just the industry that supports that, the guys that are making the reloading machines. I mean, you've got all of that, the steel that's involved. I mean, it would be a good thing. Anytime you can increase manufacturing, it's a good thing. More jobs, more money in the economy. So yeah.
Right. Again, I go back to why can't the Democrats champion this and say, look, we're just doing this for the economy. Full autos means jobs. Full autos means money for America.
Full auto does equal jobs. That would be a great bumper sticker.
Full auto into the future. The O in auto could be an Obama O.
And in jobs, you can put it double time.
All right, Stone Guy.
Yep.
Is it ready for that note yet?
Jesus, come on.
On that note, I don't know. This has gone pretty well. I mean, honestly, I was AFK, but I was listening.
You left for the 45-minute conversation on.
I was listening, but I wasn't participating.
Zealots. Yeah. Religious zealots. Yeah, that part was good.
Well, you gotta keep it fresh. There's good conversation without religion and politics, right? I don't know. Is there anything else we haven't covered, or just, I mean, we've been almost 2 hours, so this probably would be a good time to cut it. But unless there's anything else. Oh, one more real quick thing, I guess. Well, I mean, this is kind of off topic, but did anybody see the second episode of the Colion Noir show?
I did.
He's a racist. No.
I did, and I heard they took it down.
He said some pretty off-color shit. A little bit.
We're watching on the first.
Have they started his actual show?
Yeah, it's the second episode.
It comes on Sunday night, but then he posted on his YouTube channel, and that's where I saw it on YouTube today.
Okay, so what's off color? What's off? Catch me up. What's off color?
You'd have to watch it. I can't recall verbatim what he said.
Oh, you can't have a bomb like that and not deliver.
You gotta watch it.
About the first one. I'll talk about the first one.
This is a reason to listen to the next podcast.
In the next chat.
Oh, hooks for days.
That's right, son. Son.
Dude, you take that wherever you travel? Fuck yeah, the hotel. I just realized that.
On the plane the entire way there.
For 6 hours, man, just honky tonk
had a jug.
all the way.
Bluegrass. You're going
just bluegrass is hell.
Part of his bug out kit.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So
it totally is.
There's the link for the show. So we're going to continue this conversation in the next chat apparently, but that's the link if you guys want to watch it real quick. But
you put in gun channels?
No, I put it in the side chat here.
Oh, this is all right.
Which are we going to the lobby or you got another one?
No, I don't know. I'm not going to do I'm not going to host an after chat. I just do the lobby.
All right, well, that's a 24-minute video. Why don't we wait about a half an hour or so, and then we'll do a Colion Noir critique / weekly wrap-up chat after this.
I'm going to fry him.
I want people to tell me what was in it.
Yeah, I don't want to watch it.
You don't have to. I'm just saying we're going to give people the time to watch it if they want to. So in about a half an hour, we'll start another podcast with the people that wanted to watch that, and then, like I say, a weekly wrap-up like we were talking about.
Yeah, it sounds like something interesting Monday. Anyway.
Cool deal. Well, man, I appreciate everybody coming out and participating and tuning in. It was a pretty good chat, I think. Got a lot of information out there. So thanks again, and stay tuned next week.